Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Evans. I'm a full stack software developer. Now, in our last lectures, we created our frontend using React. We created components and we also used TypeScript to create our navbar. We use React Router for routing and URL functionalities, and we configured our routes in our app.js file. In today's lectures, we'll go ahead and create database for our backend or for our application, and you'll learn a lot from this database that we're gonna design. Whether you're an HR administrator, a hiring manager, a software developer, a database administrator, this DB tables that we'll create is gonna teach you a lot. For HR managers, they can efficiently manage detailed employee information, including their personal details, their employment type, skill management, contact information, departments and job management, and so much more. Now, don't ask me if I'm an HR manager to have experience in HR activities, because I'm not. However, one of the beauties in software development is that you're gonna have experience working with various departments in different organizations because you're building applications for them. So you learn because during requirement gathering, you have to know what their processes are, how they are connected, all their requirements, the type of data that they use, and all the rest. So these building applications for organizations have given me a lot of experience with the HRO department, internal sales, external sales, logistics, warehousing, accounting, and all the rest. So in today's lectures, we will use Django ORM system to create our database table. ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping and is a component in Django Web Framework that allows developers to interact with databases using Python syntax instead of SQL syntax. Now, the ORM in Django, it has its advantages as well. Now, as you know, we have different kind of databases. There's SQLite, there is MySQL, there is Postgres, and all the rest. Now, each of them uses the SQL language, but with some differences. So, but it doesn't mean that in Django you cannot write pure SQL syntax. You can, because as you can see on my screen, these are just raw SQL codes I wrote. So you can decide to use the ORM system, or you can decide to write your SQL codes anyhow you want it. It's fine and it's gonna work for you. So I'm just gonna show you one example, to explain why the ORM system in Django is very good. So let's say I want to select employee details from a database tables. Using ORM, I could write something like query set equals employee details dot objects dot all. So this is how to select the all employee details using Django ORM method. However, if I want to write this in, maybe I'm using SQLite database, so I'm gonna write it like this. I will say select all, asterisk is all in SQL, from employee details. Put it in quotes, put the employee details in quotes. And then this. So this is for SQL Lite. Now, if I want to do the same for my SQL, I'm gonna say select all from single quote now, employee details, now. So you see the difference. there's a difference between MySQL and SQLite. While these have a double quote, these have a single quote. And then for Postgres as well, it's same as this. So sometimes no matter how knowledgeable you are or no matter how experienced you are, it's gonna confuse you, because as a software developer, you may be working with PostgreSDB or maybe MySQL or SQLite, or Oracle and all the rest. But using the ORM method in Django, you just do the same thing no matter the database you are using. So I'm gonna take this off and then I'll close this application. I just opened this to make an illustration. Now, so this is our application that we're building, employee record management system. So now the first thing you want to do is to go to your API app here. Go to this API app and then you're gonna see models.py. So in here, the first thing you want to do is to create a class called employee details. So I'm gonna say class employee details, and then you say models dot model. Now for yours, you can call it whatever name you want. This has to be class, however this has to be anything you want. Then you add models dot model. Now one thing you should know is class naming in Python and Django has to be, you have to follow the Pascal casing convention. Pascal casing, it means each new word should start with a capital letter. That is Pascal casing. So we have Pascal casing, we have snake casing, and then we have camel casing. So this is an example of Pascal casing. I will say Pascal casing. So casing is a new word and it starts with a capital C. Pascal is a new word or the beginning of your word and it starts with a capital. While in snake casing, everything is flat. So I'll say snake underscore casing. So this is used for variable naming, while Pascal casing is used in naming your class. And then we have camel casing as well. So camel casing, the first word has to start with a small letter, camel, and the next one is gonna start with capital, camel casing, and then the next one is gonna start with small. So it goes down, up, just like the way a camel is shaped. So now I'm gonna delete this, and then so for these employee details now, the first thing you want to capture is first underscore name. And remember I told you variable names has to start with, or field names has to start, you have to use the snake casing, while the class naming has to be Pascal casing. So field name equals models dot character field, and max underscore length equals 120. Now you need to choose a number that can accommodate first name. Now I have never seen any first name that is longer than 120 characters, but don't use a number that is too small. Don't assume that somebody's first name will not be as long as 20, because some names are more than 20 characters. And so when you do this, while imputing the record, if the name is longer than 20 characters, it's not going to accept it. So you need to state a value that is a little bit bigger than the field that you're trying to capture, but not too big, because when you make it too big, your database becomes too heavy. So I'm just gonna go with 80 characters. 70 is okay. So Now, the next field you want to pick is middle name. So I'm just gonna duplicate this, to make our development faster. Paste it, and then I will say middle underscore name equals models.character field max length 70 as well. Now the next field we want to capture is last underscore name. Last underscore name equals the same thing, models.character field max length. I'm just gonna call it 70 as well. 70. Now let's go with gender. Now gender equals models dot character field. I will explain. Max length equals 1. Then I will say choices, because I don't want the person to put choices by themselves, but I want to define, I want to make some predefined choices that they can select from. So I will say choices equals I'll call it gender underscore choice. Now we're gonna create this gender underscore choice. So what you do is come to this top place, and we're gonna create a list of tuples. So list of tuples is a list containing a tuple. Now we are using list of tuples because we don't want the value of the tuples to change, once they are created. Tuples are immutable. Once they are defined, they cannot be changed. So we don't want the values to change. That's why we are using tuples. And then we are using list because we need to list down the gender choices. So I'm gonna say gender underscore choices equals. Now you define a list using a square bracket, and then just take one down, and then inside the list you define your tuples. Now so I'm gonna say M for male, put a comma. The next one I'll go with is F, put a comma, female. And then the next one I'll go with is O, others. Now, so now when you do this, once you create a field called choices, once you make a field and give it these choices attributes, it becomes a drop down. So on our front end interface, we will see gender as a drop down, and then the user can select male, female, or others. But internally, if you select male, internally it's gonna be saved as M, but it knows that is male. If you select F, internally it's gonna save as F. If you select others, internally is also gonna save as O. However, you can decide to make this whatever you want. You can also say male, female, and others. So you can do whatever makes sense to you. So if you select male, internally is gonna store as male. If you select female, internally is gonna store as female as well. So anyhow you want to structure yours, you can do that. So we say gender is models.character field, max length equals 1. We are not stating female is like 246 character length. No, we are not stating it, because this is an option field. It's an option. You can only select one option, and that's why we said max length is 1. And then choices equals gender choices. So this is gender choices that we've defined. So this is how to define drop down menu in Python and Django. Now, the next field we want to capture is dates of birth. Now, these are the fields I'm using and they are not holistic. You can add whatever field you want and you can take off whatever field you want. I'm just teaching. So, date of birth, you have to say is models dot date field. And then you open parentheses. Now, let's go over to contact information section. So, this is bio info, and then contact info. So this is just a single line comment. Now the first field we want to capture is email. Email equals models dot email field, open parenthesis, and you say unique equals true. So once you define a field as unique equals true, it means no two employees can have the same email address. Now the next field we want to capture is contact number. Let's say mobile number. I'm just gonna call my own contact number, and then you should call your own mobile number or telephone number or whatever you want to call it to make it a little bit different from my code. Now you want to say models dot char field, max length, let's just say 25. Yeah, 25 would be okay. And then I'm gonna say unique equals true. Unique equals true because I don't want two employees to have the same contact number, even if they are spouses. And then 25 is 25 sufficient, including country code. I'm just gonna make it 30. Now the next field we want to capture is address line 1. Address line 1. So models dot character field, max length, address line 1, I'll say 300. 300 is sufficient. Okay, so I'll just duplicate this for address line 2. Yeah, so the same thing. So for yours, you can make this home address 1 and home address 2, or whatever name you want. Now the next field is city equals just the same thing, models dot character field, max length, I'll make it 150. That's for city. And then nationality equals models dot char field, max length, I'm just gonna call it 200. Ideally, so as we progress further and we start using JavaScript more, instead of just letting the user type in the nationality, we'll use country APIs to fetch all the countries in the world, and then it's gonna be like a drop down where the user can simply select the nationality. So for now, I don't want to make the application very complex because I want to carry the new beginners along. So I'm just gonna leave it at this. So I'm gonna put a comment to remind me, use country API to populate all the nationalities. We can also use Django. Okay, now instead of using JavaScript to populate the country's API, which will require you to work with API integration, I'm gonna use Django now. Now on our later topics, we'll go into API integration and all the rest. But for now, we're not ready for that. So what I'm gonna do is you have to import a module. Come to the top now, and then you say from Django underscore countries dot fields imports country field. Now this is gonna give you an error because we need to import the country field. So we need to install the country field. So I will comment it out first, and then I will save my file, and then open my terminal. Go to these three dots, click on terminal, and then click on new terminal. In here, type pip install Django dash countries. Let me reduce my screen size. So this is the code: pip install Django dash countries, and then you press enter. Make sure that your system is connected to the internet, otherwise it's not gonna install. Now my Django countries has been successfully installed, so I can go back to my models.py and then remove my comments here. Save all. Now after installing Django countries and importing the Django country library field here, it's still giving an error. So what you have to do is you need to add Django countries in the installed app. So you need to go to your API folder, which is our backend folder. Go to settings. No, not the API folder. So you need to go to your main project folder. Our main project folder is the employee record. Click on it. Go to settings.py and then look for installed apps section. Yeah, this is it, installed apps. And then in here, quotes, inside of it you just type Django countries and then comma at the end. Go to file and click on save all. Now let's go back to our models, and then the error is gonna go. Now I'm gonna show you how to use the documentation. So just go to your web browser, and if you type Django countries, you're gonna see it, Django countries, and then this is the documentation. So this is the code I showed you: pip install Django countries. Now let's just scroll down, and on this part I click on installation, and then number one you see do pip install Django countries, which we did. And then the second thing you have to do is add Django countries to installed apps, which we did. We went to our main project folder settings, and then we added it, Django countries. So I added it at the top. You can add it at the bottom if you want. So this is how to use the documentation. And yeah, so let's go back to our code now. So in here now, I'll take out this because I don't want the user to manually type the countries. So I will say country field, parenthesis, blank label, underscore label equals parenthesis, select country. Then I will say max length No country character length should be more than 200. So when you run your application on the drop down, this is what is gonna appear. Select your country. This is the text that I want to appear. So you can change your text to whatever you want. So yeah, but then I'm still gonna talk about generating list of countries using country API with JavaScript. So I'm still gonna show you this later on. Now the next field I want to capture is post or zip code. So I'm gonna say zip or postcode equals models.character field or char field. I will say max length equals 20. So I need to indent this very well, and then I'll just be saving it as I'm working. Now this is for contact info. You can add more field if you want, but I'm just gonna leave mine this length. Now the next field I want to capture is employment information. So I'm just putting a comment, but they are still on the same model, on the same employee details model, which is a table in our database. So employment information, I'll go with employment ID first. Employment ID equals, I'll use models, the same thing, models.character field. Unique equals true. So each of the field have different attributes. Unique equals true because I don't want two employees to have the same employment ID. It's gonna cause confusion. Now my employment ID, I'm just gonna say max length. I'll leave it at 20, and then I will say editable equals false. For this employment ID, I'm gonna write some functions that will create employment ID automatically. So our employment ID is gonna be something like, I will assume that the name of the company is Mevab. So the employment ID is gonna take the first three letters of the company and then random string. So random 10 string is just gonna maybe something like this. So all employee ID will start with MEV and this and this and that. Now when I show you how to create this random string, you can do your own to concatenate the name of the organization and then the name of the department. Maybe I'll say admin, concatenate admin and then random string. So you know that this employee works for Mevab and then his department is admin. Their department is admin and then this is the number, so something like this, or however you want to do yours. So just by saying this employment ID on the ID card or wherever, you know that this employee works in the admin department, but for mine, I will leave my own just like this. Oh, so this is for job title, models or character field, max length is 100, then employment ID as well. I say editable is false because I don't want the ID to change. Unique is true, max length is 20. Then for this nationality, there is another way to do it. So some applications and some websites, they run on only a few regions. So let's assume that you want your app to be used in maybe a few selected countries. Then this is not going to work, because this country API, this country's API, is gonna populate the list of all countries in the world. So if you want to select a few country, then what you have to do is simply, let me just duplicate this to make our development faster. I'll paste it, and then instead of gender here, I'll call it country list. Country list. And then you can change this. Let's say USA, Britain, Canada, and then you come over to this place, simply copy this gender that we defined, come to this section anywhere at all, and then you put, I won't call it nationality now, I'll call it country. So it's going to be models of character field, max length is 1. Choices will no longer be gender choice, rather it's gonna be country list. So if you have a few countries you want to work with, your application runs in a few countries, then this is your best bet. This method. However, if you want to populate the entire list of countries in the world, then you go with this. So I will just put a comment on this. Now I'll remove this, it's not needed. So I've defined my zip or postcode. Some countries use zip code, some use postcode. And then employment information, I explained that this is my employment ID, models of character field, unique equals true, because I don't want two employees to have the same ID. Max length is 20 and editables equals false. So for this employment ID, we'll generate random string. So I'll write my code like this, assuming the name of the company is Mivab. My employment ID would generate random string concatenating the initials of the company, so MEV, and then random 10-digit string. So yeah, this is how the employment ID is gonna look like. All employment ID will start with MEV and then random numbers. But in your own, you can do it this way: MEV for the company, space the initials of the department, so admin, dash, then random string. So mere looking at this ID, you will know that this person works for Mivab company and then works in the admin department, and this is the number. So anyhow we want it, you can concatenate it that way. So yeah. So job title is models.character field, max length is 100. For this job title as well, you can also populate titles and then use it the way we did for gender and for country list. Now the next field we want to capture is the department of the employee. So I'm gonna say department equals models dot, I'm gonna go with many to many field, then parenthesis departments, and then I'm gonna say blank equals true. Now for department, I'm using many to many field because one employee can be in multiple departments. So one employee can be in admin department, they can also be in sales department. Yeah. And then blank equals true because at this point we've not created any table called departments. So if you don't do it this way and put this in a quote, then you will have an error. If you don't put this in a quote and you run it, you will have an error because there is no table called department. This is a table. So I'm saying this now, when you run the application, you're gonna see an option where you select various departments. So on the pop-up field, you will see all the department field and then you can select for the person. But now we don't have any department table and we don't have any department stored in wherever. So you have to enclose this in a quote. This way, if the application run, it will tell you there is no department to select. And whenever you create departments, then you will see the department field on this label. You will see the department and then you can select it for this particular field. The next field that I want to capture is employment underscore type. Employment type equals models dot char field max length. What am I going to use? Let me use 120, and then let me create a choices field for this employment type as well. So I'm just gonna say, come to this place and say choices equals employment. I'm just gonna call it employment type. So I need to create a choices just the way I created for this. Duplicate this, and then call this employment type choices. Let me make it different from the field name. So the employment type choices, I'll go with FT is full-time. I'll say PT for part-time. You can call yours whatever you want. I'll call this flexible, FX for flexible. And then one more field. I'll call this contract city. This is gonna be contract.